Euphoria is a show that pushes the boundaries of storytelling in its raw, unapologetic portrayal of real-world issues. Every character is given an honest depiction as we see behind the tropes that have plagued high school dramas since Dawson's Creek. Sam Levinson is a genius, dialed into telling the best story possible, who can only be praised in his successful representation of a black girl's battle with addiction, a high school girl's battle with Freudian daddy issues, and a maybe closeted gay dude's battle with aggressive tendencies. Wait, hold on. That's actually not true at all, and Euphoria is all one giant lie. What is this? What's going on? What's up with this text on screen? What? Hey! I love Euphoria and partially the discourse around it. Every Sunday, I not only get a new episode, but also a wave of new TikToks and tweets with everyone sharing their thoughts and feelings about the developments within the show. Some people just airing their frustration, and others delving deep into the symbolism within a given episode. A piece of media capable of capturing an audience of this magnitude has something special. With Euphoria, it doesn't take long to find it. The performances, the cinematography, the editing, the bright, vivid colors, even the music makes the show stand out. While these are all positive factors, the show does stand out for negative reasons too. The excessive nudity and the overly graphic scenes are also things that make the show stick out from the crowd. I don't think I've ever seen so much flaccid in my life. And while it can be argued that the excessive penis is meant to highlight the excessive nature of all nudity, breasts being the most common featured on screen, I'd have to ask, why include so many breasts on screen then? If your goal is to hold a mirror up to cinema's thirst for women's bodies, then why satisfy them with needless nudity? While I find almost all nudity to be unnecessary and exploitative in nature, it wasn't a deal breaker for me. Euphoria was unlike anything I've ever seen before. It centered Rue, a black girl battling addiction, as its narrator. And for that reason alone, it's a piece of art that resonates with me deeply. It's so rare to see a black woman represented on screen, let alone as the character telling the story the way she sees it, to exist outside of just being a token black woman to appease the demand for representation in the media we consume. While the portrayal is far from perfect, we'll be getting to that. It is more than anything I've seen before, and a story not centered around the black struggle. It's in fact Rue's narration that I find so interesting. It's the lens in which we view the world, how every other character is presented, and how we experience major events. Everything is filtered through Rue, and Rue is an unreliable narrator. She said it herself, but it's pretty easy to tell because she's high for at least half of the show. In storytelling, narrators are often split into two types of narrators: a heterodiegetic narrator, an omniscient narrator that exists outside of the story, and a homodiegetic narrator, a character included inside of the work. For the most part, a heterodiegetic narrator is considered reliable, and a homodiegetic narrator is considered unreliable. Which makes sense. Humans are full of flaws and biases, and despite their best efforts, they'll never be able to truly tell a story from all angles in 100% good faith all of the time. Except for me, of course. I'm perfect. What's the use in lying about it? This is the tip of the iceberg because we can't talk about narration without talking about vocalization. Vocalization is a question of who sees instead of who speaks. Things get really interesting here because once you change perspective, the story becomes different. Hey, who are you? Last time I catch you in my house. Sorry for the interruption, the perspective just keeps switching for some reason, but let's continue. Vocalization further breaks down into internal and external, and there are 4 types of vocalization, and neurology is a can of information and theories I don't want to bore you with, so let's continue. Some popular stories with highly unreliable narrators. The Cast of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. You remember that cheeky bastard? Buried a dude alive for insulting him, but if we take what he said at face value, he was well within his moral rights to lock a dude in a tomb for eternity for an insult that may or may not have even happened. What about a fun one? Joe Goldberg from You. Not you, but you. He went on a killing spree all for the girl he loved. Noble, right? Well, he actually killed her too, and her best friend, and her boyfriend, and that was all just season 1. But if you trust his version of things, he was just a romantic that pushed it just a wee bit too far. Penn Badgley, the actor who plays Joe, has made it his mission to make sure you know he's an unreliable narrator because, well, some people have lost the plot. Stop romanticizing literal murderers. People, Rue isn't a murderer, but she is an unreliable narrator. She tells us this in season 1, episode 1, the pilot episode. Euphoria isn't pulling any punches when you sit down to watch. They're letting you know you can't get comfortable. You always have to be on your toes because if you're not, you might miss something. Might take the story at face value. Something the show doesn't want you to do. Euphoria is a story of complexity. It explores the intricacies of right and wrong. It challenges the binary framework of how other stories operate. Good guy does good things, bad guy does bad things. Some stories thrive in simplicity they're comforting for it. But personally, I love a show that challenges my interpretation of right and wrong. A show that makes me take a step back and critically analyze the material it presents. Sure, dealing drugs is bad, but making money to support your family isn't. In the same breath, sure, lashing out and weaponizing personal information shared in confidence is wrong, but battling addiction isn't. Euphoria thrives because it's morally gray. You decide for yourself who you're rooting for and why. You can make a case as to why almost every character in Euphoria is a bad person, but you also discover why they are a person who does bad things. While I sympathize with some characters more than others, I realize no character is without their own moral justifications. I also have to realize every character's justifications are being relayed to us through Rue. This seems like a good time to clarify that the storytelling is not perfect. Some characters are severely underdeveloped, and the show can feel abrupt and confusing at times, especially in Season 2. One of these is fair to lay at the doorstep of Rue's unreliability. In Season 2, she's using again, so the jarring telling of events adds to her relapse. Undeveloped characters, however, like McKay for example, are most likely thanks to poor writing, especially considering the intense assault that took place in Season 1 that was never talked about again. Making your narrator unreliable doesn't give you an excuse to be lazy, Sammy boy. I'm going to talk about the special episodes now. The 2 special episodes released after Season 1 were special in part because they weren't narrated by Rue. I love these special episodes, and they might be my favorite episodes of any TV show ever, of all time. Both are kind of movies, in a way, existing on their own in a special sort of way. These episodes felt like therapy, with Jules' episode literally being a therapy session and Rue's episode being a conversation between her and Ali. It's black therapy, y'all. We keep that shit in-house. It's free, and you know family's not gonna run your business up and down Broadway. For the most part. In these episodes, we finally get to see just how unreliable Rue is. In her special episode, she and Ali discuss everything from the meaning of life, the reason good people die while others live, and how she's mad at Jules for leaving her to go to the city. She's also upset that Jules cheated, and she even blames Jules for her own relapse. It's a very one-sided perspective of the course of events that led to the end of Season 1. It shows we only know what Rue decides to tell us, and she can't tell us what she doesn't know. Luckily, Jules also gets a special episode. It's a therapy session that almost feels like a psychoanalysis. The episode is a retelling of Season 1 through Jules' perspective, where we learn about what Rue didn't know about Jules. Sorry, that was kind of a mouthful. Jules' mom, like Rue, is an addict, and there seems to be a Freudian element within her attraction to Rue. Jules' trauma with her mom parallels her relationship to Rue in a lot of ways. Both at some point in time have put their sobriety on her shoulders. Being an addict is extremely difficult, I'll tell you that firsthand, but living with and loving an addict, I couldn't even imagine. The pain Jules suffered at the hands of her mom is beyond anything I've ever felt before. This episode shows us Jules also suffered with Rue. Jules felt responsible for Rue's sobriety, and Rue put that responsibility on her. It wasn't fair, but addiction never is. The point is, the people who love you are the ones you hurt the most, and we couldn't understand the full scope of that reality without seeing the story from Jules' perspective. Rue is not the only victim of her addiction. Just imagine how different this show would look if Rue's mom, Leslie, was the one telling it. We wouldn't know shit. We'd be at work, filled with anxiety about where her daughter was, afraid every episode when she'd pull in the driveway, she'd walk in and find her daughter dead on the ground. I actually would love to see an episode from Leslie's perspective, just to really drive the point home. Not that we're going to get one or anything, I don't have that much faith in Sam Levinson, but that would be really cool if we did get one. Fingers crossed, folks. Euphoria has become an aimless show, even though it remains a hypnotizing one. In the disarray of Season 2, the series' sense of nihilism is magnified. Let's talk about Season 2, because Shirley didn't like it. Rue's unreliability comes in full force in Season 2. She's doing drugs again and is lying to everyone about it. Everyone except the sorry replacement for McKay, Elliot. A lot happens this season. Cassie puts her need for malvalidation before her best friend. Kat walks out on his family. Kat gets a terminal brain disorder. Lexi puts on an amazing play, and Ashtray gets a bullet in the head. It's a hectic ride. However, this season does something really cool with perspective. The last 2 episodes are centered on a play Lexi made about her life, aka her version of Euphoria. We get a play narrated by Lexi through Rue's narration, and it gets even crazier. Lexi becomes our narrator throughout the course of the play.
I feel like I've lived most of my life in my imagination, taking the smallest moments and dreaming them up.
She speaks directly to us, narrating events how she saw them without Rue's narration layered over it. For this reason alone, this season has won my heart. I'm ready for all of the hate comments, but I cannot tell a lie. Euphoria is truly an experimental show and is pushing the boundaries of what we traditionally see from high school dramas, and I love it. I love it. I have my issues with it, but I love it. Alright, I'll explain. Rue sees herself as a bad person. She makes sure we see her worst moments in painful detail. But Lexi sees Rue as a girl who's been through a lot. She sees her addiction as Rue's way of coping with that pain. Maybe I'm going on a tangent here, but this play with Lexi as our narrator is telling us, the audience, that you really are more than your worst moments. The people closest to you don't just see the bad, and Rue realizes this during Lexi's play. She gets to see a perspective of herself she's never even considered before, and for us, it may not seem much, but for her, it means everything. After the play is over, Rue goes to Lexi's, and we learn this play gave her an understanding of what else can come from tragedy besides just more misery.
I don't know, I think I've been through a lot, and I don't know what to do with it. But you've been through a lot, and you know what to do with it.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, Lex, look what you made. I don't know how to do that. But you figured it out. When my dad died, everybody would tell me that he died for a reason. Oh, that shit used to piss me off. But I think what they're actually saying is that you gotta give it a reason.
Which is art. The ability to create art. Lexi was able to take her pain and turn it into art that resonated with an audience, and was able to communicate tragedy in a way Rue never even considered. This play just gave her a reason to get clean, to become a better person. Watching her part in someone else's story gave her what she'd been missing, a reason to keep going. And it was all part of the show. That's right, the conversation ends on stage. It's the final scene of the play. It's a beautiful mindfuck, and that's the power of the narrator. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it this far, I am shocked. And if you want to see me rant about Tall Girl 2, because I put a lot of time and energy into that video, watch it here. I'll put it here if I can. I think I can figure that out. Watch me rant about Tall Girl 2 because it was terrible. Don't think you got rid of me that easy, Sammy boy. Euphoria, while amazing in so many regards, is not perfect by any means.